Hello, it's Nigel Merchant again from King's Court Trust. I've recently recorded one regarding the grant of probate products, i.e. the reduced service, where you can now offer just a grant only in assets, or a grant and a trust of property that may be in the will. So inevitably, the question will come into us that if we're offering a reduced service, is there a reduced fact find to fill in at the same time? So the answer is no, there isn't at the moment. That may well come in time, but at the moment there's no time frame for developing a shortened fact find. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to run through the fact find with you just to show you actually what you need to do, because it is a very quick and simple process. I.e. the existing fact find can cater for just having less information in it, but still being able to complete it and send it on to us. So what you can see on the screen is just the case that I started before on the demo Onsite page. This is the basic details screen, so it's got details of the deceased, details of maybe the main contact, the executor, and by completing those fields you will be able to click the proceed button down the bottom, as you can see. That will then allow you to either go into a quote or into a fact find. So if I just quickly touch on the quote, this one here, we've gone through and done all the information. You've got your green ticks on the left hand side, got to the generate quote section. It would have produced you potentially it would produce you a full estate administration service, but you said no, you don't want that at the top, so it's then allowed you to go into one of the three options: the grant only, the grant and three assets, or the grant and trust of property, to produce the fee for you. Separately, you've got the fact find. So this is as you've had before. There's no change from that point of view. And then what you need to do with the fact find, as before, is get to the position where all the boxes on the left hand side have been completed, got their little green ticks on them, so that you can down the bottom proceed with the fact find and complete it. When it's blue in that particular mode, it does indicate that it is ready to go. But if you actually press the proceed button now, you will get a lot of red X's turn up on the left hand side. So you need to fill in the data, but you need to just fill in the data that you've got in front of you. So it will mean that a lot of the screens you will just be locking down, i.e. validate and lock them to get the green tick, but actually not inputting any data whatsoever. So the first couple of boxes, we would expect information to be there. So details about the deceased. You've got you can see you've got a couple of red asterisks here. So there's mandatory fields. So as an example, if I tried to validate and lock this one here, it brings up some error messages to say, no, we need to input national insurance number and a little bit of information here. So you would be expected to input that information. So if I just maybe create some information here very quickly, put in a national insurance number. Did the deceased have a lasting power of attorney or a general power of attorney? Yes, no, unsure. So answer whatever the appropriate one may be, but you're filling in the box. Did they live outside the UK? That's probably no. Did they have a will? If it's yes, you can fill in the details, but just because I'm just going through the webinar and don't want to delay it too long, I'll put no here. So it's in intestacy. That's now done those mandatory fields. So you will be able to validate and lock that one down. So that's the first one done. If you then go into people, again, we would expect to see details in here, i.e. the executors and the beneficiaries can be added in here. But as an example, exactly as the same as the previous screen, if I try to validate and lock it, it won't work because it's always going to ask for marital status. So again, if I put married, it would ask who the spouse is, but if it was, as an example, single person, that's all you would need to put in there. You can then put in the executors and the beneficiaries, and it may well be they're one of the same person, and that would allow you to then lock that screen down. Okay, so it is just going down the screens as before. Now it may well be here there aren't any mandatory information here. It's likely that the person is retired. It doesn't have to be, but it's likely. That is probably all you need to put in there, so we can lock that one down. Let's just say, because you're doing a grant only product, let's just say it's cash in the bank. So maybe there's, I don't know, £100,000 in an ISA where a bank is requiring a grant. So property is no. So we can validate and lock that. In the bank accounts, you then would be putting in maybe a bank account. So it'd be, so HSBC Bank, I wouldn't ever worry about telephone numbers or whatever. Let's just say is a current account. Ownership sole. 100,000 in the bank. And we've done that. So we can then validate and lock that. There we go. Other assets, shares, national savings, premium bonds, nothing of that. It's just the money, so we can lock that one down. So as you can see, it's fairly simple and straightforward to go down. Got to pensions, likely that maybe there was a state pension, if they're, particularly if they're retired, might not have any private pensions. Personal possessions. So again, if you validated and locked this one, you would get a mandatory question. So is it taxable or non-taxable as your understanding of it? So again, you would need to fill that in. So let's say it's non-taxable, but that would then allow you to lock that one down. Gifts and trusts. So although these fields aren't mandatory, these questions always need to be answered. So please, 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 can you never submit a fact find without filling in these questions? We will have to go back to your client and ask questions if these aren't answered. So we should never see a fact find with blank questions. You've always got yes, no, unsure. So if you are unsure, please can you fill them in? But we would never expect to see this blank. So just for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to put in unsure on all of them. This is so that we can make sure that we're doing the right work on the inheritance tax return, so we can get the grant for the client as quick as possible, and therefore your client can move on. So it's all about the customer journey. As soon as they're left blank, we don't know whether the question has been asked or not. It means we're then having to go back to definitely go back to the client, might be having to go back to yourself, and then it all becomes a bit bitty. So please make sure this is always answered rather than left blank. Funeral bill, again, don't need to worry necessarily too much about this because the client may well be doing this themselves. So again, you can validate and lock them down. So as you can see, I'm getting down quite quickly through the fact find. Again, variations, well, we can do them if they want us to do them, but that's additional fees and services. But if it's a grant only product where we're just trying to help the client out with a bank account, it's unlikely that any of these are needed. And so you can see just literally in the last 5 or 10 minutes, I've got virtually right the way down to the bottom of the form where I've filled this in. So although the fact find obviously has a multitude of questions in it, because this is looking to satisfy every estate, whether it's taxable, non-taxable, whether it's got one beneficiary or 25 beneficiaries, the actual fact find itself for the grant of probate products can be very simple and straightforward to fill in. So I'm going to leave it there, but where you'll be, you'd end up having the green ticks all the way down. The proceed would be in blue as it is now. That would allow you to press the button. You would then get a message just to say, are you sure, before you press it finally, because once you've pressed it again, as you're aware, you send it to us, it then locks it all down. But hopefully that is a nice quick demonstration of how simple filling in the full fact find can be for just dealing with the grant of probate products. So it's not onerous. And as I say, this is the way certainly forward at the moment. If we do produce a simplified fact find, we will let you know when we send out a refreshed webinar. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to working with you on an ongoing basis.